Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 47 of the Glimmer Gang podcast. And we have two very special guests today with us, Franz from the Traverse Tavern and Brandon, also known as BSquared. Franz, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing absolutely wonderful. I am very thankful for you guys to have me back on here. Obviously, you guys know I run the YouTube channel Traverse Tavern, as well as I think I'm mostly active on Twitter and Discord right now, trying to grind out Real Play Network games and get ready for Dallas.
Speaking of Real Play Network, we also have the founder, or one of the founders of Real Play Network here, Brandon, also known as BSquared. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing awesome. Yeah, I hold a couple titles. I'm one of the co-founders of Real Play Network, also an official Lorcana commentator, have a YouTube channel of my own. So on Twitter a lot, lots of cool things going on.
Yeah. And also we have Blake, the trusty Glimmer Gang member. Blake, how you doing today? I know you've been up north. Up north is
very tired, but here.
Very tired
been
here.
a very busy day, but I will do my best to keep up with the conversation today.
We are without Sean today. He has a board game night with his friends, so he is off doing that. But what we're going to talk about today is this past weekend at Charlie's Collectable Show, we had another 10K. And Franz, you attended this 10K, so do you want to talk about your experience, what you played against? What were your overall thoughts of the event?
I don't want to do this. No.
Well, that's the episode, guys.
So I played Ruby Amethyst. I played pretty much what the stock standard list is going forward right now, except I think a lot of people have cut the Merlin crabs from the list, where I have not.
I'm with you
and
there.
I think I was running 2 Be Prepareds at the time to cut down on bricks against the Emerald Steel deck. And because the format of the event, I believe we had like 130-ish people, they decided to do 8 rounds, cut the top 8, and with that amount of people, that amount of rounds, those of you with very quick fingers out there will soon realize that 6 and 2 does not make it into top cut. 7 and 1 or better are the only things that make it to top cut. So if you are anything less than 7 wins before if you're any less than 7 wins before the last round, you likely do not get in unless you went 6-0 and you're intentionally drawing the last 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, I believe someone drew last round and bubbled out of top cut.
Oof.
Yeah,
which was rough. My matchups, I believe, I left after I got my 3rd loss because it was not possible to get into top 8, and I didn't want to fight all the way through. I just preferred to get my 6-hour drive started. My losses were 2 mirrors. One of them was a very close game 3, absolutely fantastic match. Really grindy. Both of us had pretty decent hands the first 2 games, and then the 3rd game was kind of bricky a little bit, but it was very nice. That one came down to her seeing 4 castles and dropping them concurrently with each other, and I saw one of my castles, and I was on the back foot the entire time, and I just couldn't get there. And then my second mirror loss, won the die roll. However, he saw all 4 rabbits both games, and I saw a single rabbit in both games. not each game, a single rabbit in the match. It was
Oof.
Dang.
It felt real bad. And
so
then
now do you know how I felt after not finding my Flins in Chicago?
Yeah, but that was a skill issue. Mine's very
Wow. Am I just bad at shuffling? Is that where we're at with this?
Yeah, exactly. And then my third loss was losing the die roll to Bucky discard, and they saw Bucky
discard.
Yeah. So that's obviously the worst matchup for Ruby Amethyst. I think most people have agreed on that, and a lot of people are saying if your opponent sees Bucky on 2, it's pretty much a 90-10 to lose the game, regardless of if you're going for a first or second. So I went in kind of expecting to lose to a Bucky discard, but expecting to fight pretty evenly for the rest of my games. Unfortunately, I had a little bit of rough variance in a mirror match, and then I faced a really good player. in another mirror match, and it went even. The other matches I think I played an Amethyst Steel, a Steel Song, and then I won another mirror match. And I think those are the only other games I played. But yeah, a lot of Ruby Amethyst, a lot of Emerald Steel. I was walking around like the top third of the tables a lot. I saw 0 Ruby Sapphire until I got home and I saw the Ruby Sapphires that made it to top. I was like, where were you guys? Where were you? I did not see you at all. Yeah, the experience over at Charlie's show is always fantastic. I love them. The venue is fantastic. There's a bunch of different vendors that sell a bunch of different trading card games, as well as anime figures, comic books, anything of the like. It feels like I'm going to a convention rather than an actual local game store. And then in the corner they have a bunch of like Japanese snacks, like drinks and the Japanese Kit Kats and chips and stuff like that. And I got a bunch of that before I left to make myself feel better.
Well, we all would love some sympathy sweets. I know you like to get those a lot.
Whoa there, buddy. Whoa.
That was a shot at you dropping more than that's what I meant.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I meant.
The only other thing was that they announced at the beginning of the event that they're going to be doing an 8K or higher every single set going forward.
Dang.
Ooh.
So every set there will be another large event at Charlie's Collectable Show. The next one is in late August.
Okay. Well, if you guys are in the Atlanta, Georgia area, go check it out. Obviously, we just had the DLC there. Charlie's has been doing these before DLC started. They've had a few big events. But obviously, Ruby Amethyst, it's one of the top 4. Brandon, I'll go to you next, and I'll just ask about this top 4. Obviously, you not love, but you are a big fan of Blue Steel. That I remember we played a few games in Chicago before. Looking at the top cut as we transition to this, with basically everything in top cut being some of the big 4, do you think that these decks are just like here to stay? Is anything going to be able to beat these decks, or like at these big tournaments we're just going to be seeing the top 4 do well every time?
I mean, the top 4 are certainly really strong decks. I think they've solidified themselves, and I don't think they're going anywhere. There's a lot of people in the community that are sticking to these decks and innovating on them as the meta evolves. The meta is moving a little bit slower than it has been in the past, but I don't think that's stopping people from trying new things. After what happened in Atlanta with Joshua during Into the Inklands coming out of nowhere with a rogue deck that nobody had thought of, then even Talman Purple came out to the CCS 10K with a very rogue Amber Ruby locations deck that didn't do half bad. He didn't make it into the top cut for the 10K, but on Sunday, I think he did make it into the top cut for that. And it performed really well. It came out of nowhere. It was super fun to watch. And I think I'm hesitant to ever say that, oh, the meta's locked, the meta's solved, because there's going to be dark spaces in the meta like this where people are testing some crazy stuff that when you sit down and your opponent plays card soldiers, you're like, what is this? Like it takes a couple of turns to adjust and to react. And so I think the top 4 are there to stay. I actually also think, this is just a hot take for me, I also think Steel Song, it's not one that people are putting in that top 4, but I think it's one that we've seen a couple times now sneak its way into some of the top tables. And I think it's a deck that people haven't respected enough. I think that just the Pride Land flute thing that they can do, playing characters super early, questing really fast, and then finishing with those, is pretty strong in this format. And the way that some of the decks are moving, locations seem to be really strong. Queen's Castle, of course, has performed super well in Ruby Amethyst lists and other Amethyst lists. And I've even seen in a couple Sapphire lists them trying to stick in McDuck Manors just because people aren't playing as much location removal. So I definitely think that the top 4 are here to stay. We didn't see Sapphire Steel do as well in the Charlie Collectable Show. There was one person that made it into top 8, but I don't think that means that the deck is like gone or bad or anything. It's just, one of those things.
Yeah, and obviously set champs are coming up. We talked about this in our last episode that going into set champs, it's more of a local scene, and we're gonna see a lot of these decks like Talman Purples that maybe are just like what's the word I'm looking for? Rogue decks. Like you're gonna see more of those when you go to these lower level tournaments, I guess, set champs, not like these big 10Ks or anything. So Blake, I'll go to you next. We'll just kind of go up the list with these tournaments. Obviously, we'll start with the 10K top 8. So the first, we had all 3 Bucky discards that were in there got knocked out, which I think a lot of people were happy to see. I don't know. I feel like when I looked at it, I
cheering on
chuckled.
the inside.
So it kind of just shows that, like, obviously it was either Ruby Amethyst or Ruby Sapphire that beat it. Blake, I'll ask you, do you think that these like Ruby decks have a better chance against Emerald, or where are your thoughts with those decks?
It really depends on the deck and how you're checking for your matchups, I think.
Kind of look at these decks now.
Yeah, I kind of need a second to look at some of these lists.
I will say,
Yeah.
the Ruby Amethyst matchup into Emerald Steel will almost always be favored for Emerald Steel.
Mhm.
I watched back that top cut match, which I believe was the one in top 8 that was streamed between Kendall and I don't remember the Emerald Steel player's name, and Kendall was mulliganing pretty aggressively for draw specifically, and I think if Emerald Steel like slow rolled it a turn or two and dropped an Ursula to rip those friends, or saw an Ursula to rip a Be Prepared, Kendall was kind of dead in the water. I'm not obviously I'm not saying that Kendall was in any way bailed out or lucky by the other players mulligan or play. Kendall's a fantastic player and absolutely deserved to win that match. However, it's hard to predict which axis your opponent is going to play on with Emerald Steel. Are they going to just hyper focus on looking for Bucky on turn 2, or if they know you're playing Ruby Amethyst, are they going to look for your draw spells? Are they going to look for that Ursula to take that out? So it's kind of 50-50, but generally, like I said, if they see the Bucky on turn 2, you're feeling pretty bad unless you're able to like go Maleficent Friends, Rabbit,
And just keep drawing
and just keep going.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of things like where they'll focus on getting 2 Buckies down and then just in 2 turns snipe the rest of your hand. That happened to me. I was playing real play last night.
If they see 2 Buckies, they'll probably play for that.
Yeah. I did some test games against Lumaqueer Lens the other day in Real Play Network, and she wanted me to play a Bucky into one of her Ruby Amethyst lists, and both games that we played, I hit double Bucky, and it was just impossible.
So
like,
over.
Like she has 4 ink, her hand's gone. Like, it feels impossible for specifically Ruby Amethyst to recover from an opening like that.
Yeah, I know, at least with Ruby Sapphire currently, a few lists, especially some, at least one of the lists here, are running the Great Stone Dragon.
Were both of them, or was it just one?
Let's see.
Yeah.
The one that got the farthest was,
I think the one in top.
The second place one.
Second place. Yeah,
second place did. Second place did. Third place did not. Third place was playing Vitalosphere.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It's to give. Yeah, it's for Flynn, as well as the opportunity cost of getting rid of castles easier too.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is very true. And I think,
Great Stone Dragon is like the one. Yeah, Great Stone Dragon is like the one tech that deck has against the Emerald Steel matchup, where you're still getting use out of your characters that you're having to throw away.
So, and like a big part of Ruby into Emerald Steel is if you can get to that high cost big removal that you have, then you can
Yeah.
you can reset the tempo of the board, you can reset the board state, and then often you have better top decks than your opponent does. That's how
Yeah.
we were winning last set specifically, because Bucky was just like that 1 or 2 turns slower, because we didn't
Yeah,
have as
because of
many free
Diablo.
drops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being able to get to that 6, 7, 8 ink, that's going to allow you to reset that board more often with the amount of cards that you have. And Ruby Sapphire plays a lot more board wipes than Ruby Amethyst does, and
Yeah.
can get there easier with the ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I actually think Ruby Sapphire like doesn't have the worst matchup into an Emerald Steel for that reason. Like you have access to.
I would say it's arguably positive for Ruby
I would,
Sapphire.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like as long as they don't hit you with major discard super early, and you don't miss all of your draw. I mean, basically every game is a 1-turn popsicle or develop your brain into probably a 1 jump ahead to ramp into a Grammatala or Flaversham to start drawing you cards. And like if you can stick a Flaversham against Emerald Steel, which is relatively easy because they don't really have any answers out of maybe a we don't talk about Bruno to put it back into your hand. You're likely drawing 2 or 3 cards every turn with the Flaversham, and like you only need a few turns, like Franz said, to get up to that high ink. And then you play your Be Prepared, you play your Sisu, whatever you have, and then the green steel really struggles to catch back up once they lose the tempo.
Yeah.
And then
I would say because of that matchup with Ruby Sapphire, if I'm ever making a list of these 4, I think I have to start with Ruby Sapphire.
I agree.
I think there is a bit of a, guess, square you could say like that, like this beats this beats this, because you can say like Emerald Steel is positive into Ruby Amethyst, but then Ruby Amethyst is also positive or very close to even at least into both of the Sapphire decks, just because of how quickly that deck can go. And so I think like we're in a very it's nice to see, like we saw it last set with set 3, and set 3 was kind of more wide open than anything, but we still have the opportunity to where this deck can beat that deck if it does really well, but that deck is also going to beat this deck, but then this deck is going to beat that deck. And so I think right now, and people like, I think at the start of this set the meta was very tight, and I think it's slowly starting to open up. And like you said earlier, Brandon, it's getting slow. It gets moving slower, because I think it's just the ability to see, like, we're getting all these tournament results, but it's the same stuff. But like in set 3, when we got tournament results, we were able to take all of that stuff because it was like new. I guess is the best way to put it. It was very new, and I'm going off more like set champs stuff. We got all the tournament results from set champs, and you're able to put them in, and that's like just an influx. And now it's like a bit slower in getting these tournament results.
We also had a little bit more of like a wide open access to data. A lot of people had more access to more data for more tournaments.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we were then able to then react to like immediately, and we were able to react to like very fast with throwing different cards in for different tech matchups and stuff like that. And we still have the ability to do that. Thank you, Real Play Network. But instead of being able to get like 2-3 matches in an hour, you get like 2-3 matches in 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like people could just test a lot easier and a lot faster in previous sets, where it's a lot harder to do that now. And there's just fewer people testing and fewer people publicly testing. There's not as many not as much gameplay for people to watch. There's not as many live streams of people that are grinding games all day to figure out which matchups are what. It's not extremely difficult, but it's really inconvenient to change cards in and out of a deck and test a couple matches because you have to physically have those cards. And then even finding people at high levels to play against can be difficult too. So for those reasons, I think the meta has slowed down a lot, but I think people are beginning to adapt and sort of get used to it as well. So it'll never be as fast as it was, I don't think. But I'm a little bit excited to see what happens in Bologna and also what happens in Fort Worth for that reason, because it, like I was saying earlier, it just gives people the ability to play with something close to their chest that they've been testing with that isn't on anybody's radar. There's a lot of tech cards that people may not be expecting. There's I don't know, it gives people an ability to still adapt their decks, but you can't really confidently say what you would expect at the next tournament, because outside of tournaments like CCS, and then of course set championships are coming up as well, we're not going to have a lot of official like a data on what people are actually playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That and like the people who are keeping these decks closer to the chest, they're not bringing them out for set championship. They're gonna wait for or they're gonna wait for Fort Worth.
Because like with these set champs, I think people are just gonna play what's consistent and what can win, and they'll, if they want to get that Ursula. And I think with set champs, there's a lot less hype than there was for the first one, and obviously because it was the first one. I guess that's true.
I feel like that's an understatement.
I'm trying to be nice here. But I think just like with set champs, you're gonna want to play stuff that's consistent and stuff like that. And I guess we can take a look at what Zach Bivens did in Atlanta and at Chicago. I think I still remember the moment that I was watching stream and Zach plays a Jiminy Cricket down, and Brandon just goes, "Hold on, is that a Jiminy Cricket?" Still remember that. And I think
like playing 8 Pascals, it's crazy.
It wasn't, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be Pinocchio coming down here soon. I'm like, nope, never saw it.
Nope, no Pinocchios.
But I think that kind of just is a big example. Is like Zach played an Amethyst Steel list in set 3 that no one really expected. And then in set 4 in Chicago, he played a Steel Song list with that not many people expected to see, and he took 3rd with the Amethyst Steel and Swiss, and 1st with the Steel Song. And so people are gonna start to keep these decks closer to their chest, and they're gonna have those like central play groups that are in person that they can test with and can trust for people to not spoil the surprise. And then once tournaments come around, they play it, and then it's out there. And we do have 2 tournaments coming up still with set 2D, or geez, I'm going the wrong way. Set 4 with Texas, and then Toronto will have kind of that same effect as Atlanta is. We'll have set 5 released. It'll be Blake's birthday weekend, which will be fun. But I do now want to talk about Luca Serrano, 15-year-old who took down the 10K, and he's it was a very,
I love it.
Yeah, it was great. Feels like very stock Ruby Amethyst with changes. We were able to see no brooms, which is something that's here. 4 Maleficent Sorceress, which is interesting, and I'll ask you guys about that. But then as you just go down the road, 4 Be Prepared, 3 Beacon Undisputed, 3 Medusa, 2 Tremaine, 4 Maui. Very consistent in removal here. Obviously, we know decks like Emerald Steel or even Amber Steel with Bare Necessities can take away Be Prepared. So Blake, I'll go to you. Thoughts on this list overall and just the consistency behind it and all that?
Yeah, it just seems like a very consistent list. Not too many 2 ofs or 3 ofs, so just very consistent. I feel like you're going to hit the pieces that you want, and you're going to see them.
Yeah,
that man is a god at drawing his 1-drops.
Yeah,
I have played him. I have played him many a time, and I don't think I've ever seen him miss a 1-drop.
It's kind of wild when I saw the list and seeing that he was only playing 4 1-drops, the Turnabach followers. I was like, this man is braver than I.
Yeah,
braver than I, for sure.
I mean, it worked. Can't fault him when it worked. But obviously with Ruby Amethyst, you want to hit that 1-drop. You want to hit Flynn and then Sisu or something that's going to buff it up or be able to trigger Flynn is the right word.
I will say with the addition of Flynn and with the addition of Sisu, we have ways to stabilize on turns 2 and 3 without seeing a 1-drop. So if there was ever a time in Ruby Amethyst where we were okay with missing out on a 1-drop, I think it would be now. Mostly because like in the mirror match, we're looking for we're looking to push this game pretty slow anyway, and Like everyone's looking for all of the rabbits in the world against Ruby Sapphire. As long as you just play, as long as you have a 2-drop, you're doing pretty fine. And against Emerald Steel, inking a card and not losing another card in hand, it's not that bad.
Yeah. And obviously, we've seen the strength behind Flynn. And even if you get one, if you were lucky to get 2 things off of Flynn, 2 activations, gaining 6 lore on top of just other lore you're gaining as well, that puts you in the driver's seat. And I think he's.
I feel like if you get 2 procs, you win.
Yeah.
Like I would be very surprised if you ever get 2 procs off of Flynn and you lose.
Yeah, you would have to brick tremendously bad, or just not see him. Like, just kidding. I'm still bitter about that. But like Blake said, you said, he's also playing a lot of draw. 4 Maleficent Sorceress isn't something we see a lot of. Obviously, the 4 goats there, 4 friends. But Brandon, I'll ask you. Obviously, draw is so powerful right now, and obviously in this. But then with decks like Steel Song and Sapphire Steel that are playing all this, like, I guess, discard with the wheel, and you lose a lot of your hand. Do you have to be careful when playing against decks like that, or can you kind of just play your draw stuff and go quickly with this deck?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of that changes in the way it's been since set 1 when we had Whole New World. Anytime you're playing a deck that you think might be playing it, you of course need to be cautious. You don't want to fill your hand up with cards and then have it wheeled away. But one of the things that I really like about the Ruby Amethyst list this set is that I feel like it has 2 paths it can go down. And you have the Flynn Sisu Castle path of being super aggressive, gaining a bunch of lore, and then finishing out your game by slowing the opponent down with Medusa's, Tremaines, Be Prepared, and goading your way to victory or castling your way to victory. Yeah. But also, you have the option, or really, I say it's an option. It's really a necessity for this deck if it wants to be, if it wants to have any game into Emerald Steel, because the only way this deck can survive against Emerald Steel is by landing Chernobyls on 2, and then making sure you play Friends on 3 or Maleficent on 3, Rabbit on 4. You know, like, you just have to get to 7 ink, and the only way to do that is by playing cards that are drawing you cards. But also, it's not a terrible strategy if you want to play a slower game, right? Like, if you're not too concerned about going super fast, because there are decks that the Flynn Sisu Castle thing does not work well enough against. You can get up to 12 lore or something very quickly, but then they very quickly take over the game and don't let you gain anything else outside of your goats that maybe you can land. So I mean, Ruby Amethyst has always been consistent. That's an adjective that I think of when it comes to the deck, and consistency comes with card draw. Like, your deck's not going to be consistent if you're not drawing cards. And for all of history of Lorcana, Ruby Amethyst has been very consistent in the way that it can draw cards and do that efficiently.
Yeah. And obviously, with, like, dating back to set 1, we had cards like Maleficent Sorceress and Friends on the other side, and there are other cards.
Magic Mirror.
Jeez. Don't start.
Notice nobody plays that card anymore. I'm just going to leave that there.
Hey, man, it could be a good tech right now in Emerald Steel. I'm just saying.
Maybe.
They have Aladdin.
Oh, God.
Oh, true, yeah.
So bad.
Too slow. Uninkable.
Yep.
Worst card in the game. But then as...
Dingle Hopper with, like, a word.
No, whatever RLS Legacy's canon would have a word.
That's actually true. But as this deck aged and grew up with the sets, we got obviously the addition of Rabbit and the whole bounce package, and then just other ways to draw as well. So this deck is always, I think it always will be consistent. I don't know if there's a world where this deck isn't being played a lot. I certainly hope not, because I really like this deck. It's what I'm the best at. So selfishly, Ruby Amethyst just.
I mean, just in general, like any Amethyst deck is going to always be considered in this this game until the bounce package is no longer good, or the bounce package gets removed in some way or the other. Because every single Amethyst deck right now that you will see in any single meta it's going to start with the same 20 cards. It's going to start with 4 rabbit, 4 fox, 4 goat, 4 friends on the side, and like 3 or 4 snake.
Yeah,
it'll start with those cards, and then it'll be like, okay, we have this. Now what can we do?
Yeah.
So, like those cards are just that good because like being able to gain the amount of hand advantage as well as control the board with the snakes and the foxes that easily, and then gain advantage off of that is just so powerful in general. It's hard to justify not playing those. So every single color that, like, anytime there's an interesting interaction in a specific color, you're like, what can I play this in? Like the first thing you're going to think of is like, well, I mean, we got these 20 cards here that are just an insane value engine in itself. Can this fit together? And then
yeah. And we've seen more stuff, like obviously Ruby Amethyst is very powerful. Amethyst Steel is very powerful. And if we want to take a look ahead to set 5, we have that new Merlin coming, which I don't know really if you're ever going to want to shift that onto one of these Merlins, so hopefully we get a different Merlin to play. But then like maybe Blurple becomes prominent. Emerald Amethyst was very good in set 3, so Franz, like you said, this bounce package will always be prevalent and always hold standard in this meta. But rounding out the rest of this top 8, there were 2 Ruby Amethyst. Luca had 1, and then Kendall Burdett had the second. Enrique Iligo and Taylor Lewis Taylor Lewis was in top 4 with Sisu, Ruby Sapphire, and then Enrique was in the finals with the same thing. And then 3 Bucky discards in top 8, and then the Cogsworth and Friends, as it says on Ink Decks, the Sapphire Steel rounded it out. So that was the 10K. Again, congratulations to Luca for taking that down. Always awesome to see someone who is younger win one of these tournaments. For the last little bit of this episode, we're going to talk about the 2K that happened on Sunday. And I guess just right off the bat, the first thing we have to talk about is Talaman's Purple's location deck. I was at work Sunday all day, so I didn't get to see this until yesterday. I didn't hear about it till yesterday, and I mean, you have stuff like Tuk Tuk in here, which makes a lot of sense to help do with Emerald, but Card Soldiers, like, what's going on? Jim Hawkins, and you're playing 4 of the Underworld, Tiana's Palace, and RLS. 4 ball, 4 just in time. So being able to you play just in time on turn 3, play a Jim Hawkins with a location.
Yep.
Disgusting.
Yep.
Like
that's the play.
Yeah. That's
tell me what can answer a turn 3 Jim Hawkins RLS Legacy pass.
Am I going first or second? Because if I'm going first, then Ruby Amethyst can absolutely answer that.
Well, I guess I'll just open it up. Thoughts on this deck? Where were your guys' minds when you saw this?
It's so funny.
It's crazy.
It's really crazy. It's really funny. I think locations in general are at a premium for how good they are versus how little answers there currently are being run in a lot of the top decks. Ruby Sapphire's just starting to run some techs against it. Against locations because of Ruby Amethyst. Ruby Amethyst in general has their own inherent anti-locations with the bounce package, but Emerald Steel, Sapphire Steel, they're barely running any item location removal at all, if any, and even then, if you're just playing location after location after location, your opponent can only play Rise of the Titan so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things I noticed with the deck as I watched Talaman Purple play it. Is once you land 2 or 3 locations, your opponent is just wasting so much of their turn and so much tempo trying to deal with it. And then after they maybe put a little damage on and develop their board a little bit, then you can start developing your own characters. And there's a couple characters here that quest for a decent amount of lore, but then you also are playing cards like the Underworld. So the few characters that you are playing that are getting banished are pretty high value characters. You're playing things like Super Goof. You're also playing Prince Herrick's and Rapunzel's, Jim Hawkins as well, and Queen of Hearts. And so like all of those cards are cards that you're happy to have on your board, and as long as you can stick something on the underworld and pay to bring it back, it's a really fun recursion thing happening of here's all these locations you have to deal with. While you're dealing with them, I'm going to pull these cards back that you keep banishing or that I keep using to keep your board under wraps. And so it struggled a little bit, I think, into a Sapphire Steel deck that it was playing into. I don't actually remember who won that match that I was watching, but I noticed that the Sapphire Steel player happened to be playing Captain Hooks and Smees and things like that we saw actually earlier in, I think, set 3 when locations were a little hot, and just these cheap characters that could challenge for a lot of strength to sort of keep the locations down. They were also playing Avalanche and Rise of the Titans, so like it was like just a really bad matchup. But so there's definitely answers to decks like this if locations end up becoming an issue. But I don't think there's anything I love more in Lorcana than seeing somebody show up to a tournament with an innovative idea like this and then it do well. Like, I could never be. I am not confident enough in my deck building ability or playing ability to bring a rogue deck like this to a tournament. I'm much more prefer to take a list that I know is really good and try to refine it and tech for stuff that I'm expecting at the tournament. But oh my gosh, it makes for very entertaining matches to watch and makes for awesome stories after the tournament also if it does well.
Yeah.
I would pick this deck up and I would never see Just in Time until it's turn. It's like turn 10. I'm like, okay, I need a Rapunzel off the top, and it's like Just in Time. Like,
I will say, the thing I am most surprised about in this deck over anything is there are 0 Be Prepareds. How are you playing a locations deck and you're not playing any Be Prepareds? I'd love to know more from Talman Purple on his thoughts on that and why it wasn't in the deck, but.
The only because I remember talking to him about it Friday night, and he was saying that he's just attempting to be aggressive. So he just didn't want to put anything like super top end in like that. And I'm like, you do you, brother. You do you.
Yeah, because there were a couple board states there where, like I said, he'd have 2, 3, maybe even 4 locations out at one time, and I'm like, Be Prepared would slap right now.
It would help a ton
win you
against,
the game.
It would help a ton against Ruby Amethyst and Sapphire Steel, the decks that like if they're able to stick a large board, he just can't really do anything about it, and because of the nature of his deck, anyone with a large board just bricks like half of his deck.
Yeah.
I'm still in awe at this. And it looks fun. I don't think I'll ever play it because, like you said, Brandon, I don't trust myself playing something like this.
I will also say I probably don't agree with the card guards. There has to be something else, man.
Mufasa?
Yeah.
No, not in a locations deck like this.
I guess that's true.
No.
Too many non-characters.
That's true.
I don't know, man. It's just I haven't looked at the card pool. He was also playing. This isn't in the. Actually, I'm just now noticing this isn't in the deck list for ink decks, but he was playing Pluto. He was playing like the 5-drop Pluto that
heals 3.
Heals 3 when played, and I forgot what the card did. So when I saw it, I was like, does this heal locations? Like, why are we playing this card? It doesn't. It just heals characters. No other benefit.
I will say, in the like 4 or 5 games that I saw him playing Friday night, I saw Pluto hit the ink about 15 times.
I haven't looked at the card pool, but I'm after this episode, I'm gonna go see what other 5-drop options we have.
I feel like Maui would be a pretty good option, and it's I don't know if it's just not in here.
It doesn't have lore.
I guess.
Yeah, you're just trying to hit good just-in-time targets, I think, is the main thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go look while you guys talk.
It's not like back in the day when we had Maleficent uninvited.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. The glory days of that card.
The glory days. Okay, character.
Man, I just flashed back to Miami when I was playing the turquoise high five.
Like we've got Nani, you've got Eudora. If you're really just trying to be aggressive.
There's no way we're playing Eudora in this format. I mean, like you have like the Queen, you have Goofy, even like Maximus. I feel like would be okay.
Yeah, I was just about to say the
surely Moana.
Yeah,
surely
Stop it.
the Ruby Moana. Surely the Ruby Moana is good enough. Location synergy. Come on. I'm cooking.
Yeah, let's
Are
see.
you cooking?
Maybe.
What about even like
Yeah.
Johnny Eudora? Gosh, Eudora.
I don't know. Regardless, it was really fun to see played, and I'll probably never play the deck, but I hope he continues to work on it.
I mean, like we could play like Radigan. Radigan would be pretty cool.
Radigan would be bad.
Radigan.
We could play
Or
Donald
even like,
Duck.
or even the
not again.
evasive
or no,
Goofy.
Tunnel Duck, not again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if a lot of the decision was just I want to play big characters with as much lore as possible that like doesn't have 3
Yeah.
strength and get
Yeah, but
banished.
Kita
by
also can
Medusa.
protect your locations,
That's true.
Yeah, kind of.
Is Kita? Oh,
except not for Maui.
If I had to guess, and this is completely going off on a limb, it is just like trying to tech against Ruby and not playing cards that
Died of Medusa.
yeah.
died of Sisu, Medusa, Ice Block stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eudora's getting crushed.
I mean, I guess
there.
like there are like no 5-drops that have 2 lore and 4 strength besides like the Queen.
Moana, dude, I'm telling you, that's the play.
Moana. Are there any princesses in this deck? Rapunzel.
Rapunzel.
Not that
No,
Moana.
not that Moana. The Ruby Moana. Whenever this character quests while at a location, ready all other characters here. They can't quest for the rest of the turn.
Oh,
He's not the only time he's moving things is with Tuk Tuk, I think.
Well, he's moving. Yeah, with like he's moving stuff with Jim and with Tuk Tuk, and
All right, let's
probably
play
having
Voyage.
him
Let's
at
play
Voyage.
Voyage.
RLS
Yeah.
Legacy
Let's play some
or
Voyage.
or Underworld, but that's probably just to get stuff back. You're probably not
Yeah.
spending ink on that.
By the way, I saw the what was it? I saw the Pluto go into ink a lot.
I don't think I ever saw it played on stream.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
matches that I saw.
Well, it's a good. I mean, it's not a bad card, I don't think, but like, then again, I don't know how much it really does because like, obviously damage can be left, but then if you're gonna want to heal, you're gonna want to play Rapunzel anyways. So, yeah.
If I had to guess, it was played more for its stats than its ability.
It was likely the stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can go over the rest of these top 8 lists. Steel Emerald won, so it did win one of these tournaments this weekend. So there was also 3 others in top 8. Third, and then third, fourth, and then a top 8 list. And then the rest was Ruby Amethyst. So again, strong decks made it, and then obviously saw this rogue deck squeak in there. And that's all we got. CCS just happened. Set champs start in a week and a half. Are we all ready? Do you know what we're playing?
No.
No.
Good idea of what I'm playing.
I have a pool of like 4 different decks that I will have at my disposal, and I get there at the day of, and I'll probably roll a dice.
Franz is you're gonna walk around and see what else is being played.
I'm
not
hoping-
that sweaty.
I'm hoping
right
I
now.
don't do what I did last time and play a different deck for each one and not get better with one deck.
I will probably play Emerald Steel for one event, and then I will stop because I want to jump off a bridge.
Play
I hate
Emerald
playing that
Steel.
deck so much.
Play Emerald
I
Steel.
can promise you one thing, and that is I am not playing Emerald Steel for set championships.
I hate that deck so much. It's so
Yeah,
unfun to play.
I can tell you I'm not, mostly just because I don't have the cards for it. So
Yeah, I don't
Well,
either.
I both
Teddy, you don't have that
the cards for
excuse.
it.
Wait, no. Never mind.
I don't have the cards.
I already felt really bad last set champs when I brought Ruby Amethyst, not because it was Ruby Amethyst, but like you're playing against people that sometimes just play this game casually, and I would like rather take a punch to the throat than sit across the table from somebody with their like upgraded starter deck and Bucky discard them at a set championships.
Yeah.
Would you have done it if this was if this was for Stitch, not Ursula?
No,
If you did,
I wouldn't.
already.
I wouldn't. I can play Ruby Sapphire, and then I don't care
He just
like
holds
that
up the
people are
one
playing.
jump.
Yeah, I've got. Look, I haven't had time to play as much as I would like, and so I've been gold fishing for days with this deck and just trying to figure out opening lines. And I'm becoming a dirty hand shuffler. Not as bad as Franz, but I've started shuffling the hand a little bit while I play, and
Well,
It'll get you'll put on like oversleeves one time and you'll do it and you're like, oh, this is so satisfying.
I have to switch my cards out every now and then, because it started first with Jonty and I always do a pack battle for our This Week in Ink. And a lot of times, like this stack of cards, actually, so I have them here from the previous ones, they just sit here until I like do something with them. And I just picked them up one day and started like doing that, and absolutely destroyed the back of the cards that I was doing it with.
Anything expensive?
No, nothing expensive. So I've sleeved it. I've sleeved a couple decks now to have to play on a Real Play Network when people want to test or whatever. And so I've pick a couple cards off the top of the closest deck and start doing that. And I'm noticing like I have to switch I have to shuffle the deck up and pick different cards every now and then, so I don't just ruin like 7 card sleeves in the deck and then throw them back in.
Yeah, suggestion.
But anyway, I'm looking at Ruby Sapphire right now. I think it's too well positioned against pretty much everything. I was playing Sapphire Steel primarily because of Bucky Discard, but I realized Bucky Discard is not as prevalent as the internet might make you think it is, and I don't expect it to be the most popular thing at these set championships. At least in my area, there's other like. I mean, I live in rural North Louisiana, but in other busier places, I can see where some really hardcore Lorcana players are willing to spend the money on the Diablos and everything to play them for set champs. But I certainly don't think it's going to be a majority. And I'm playing to my local meta. My local meta is like nothing compared to the global meta that we see right now. Mm-hmm. And I was having some trouble with Sapphire Steel into that. So I'm just decided to pick up a deck that played a lot better into what I was seeing there.
Yeah, I will say I just went to my locals on Monday, and I teched my deck out against Emerald Steel because it had been a couple weeks since I last been able to go, and I was just knowing the players, I was expecting more Emerald Steel, but there was one Emerald Steel player, and it was everything else for everything else, and I'm just like, what? It's going to be tough figuring out what I should bring, but I do have a Ruby Sapphire built for Nat right now, and so she'll probably be playing that one, so I need to find out something else.
Yeah, I'll probably play one of each of the 4 decks for the 4 events that I go to.
There you go. I will be playing Ruby Amethyst, assuming all my cards get here. I'm still waiting on my Sisus and one. I'm waiting on one Magic Room Illuminary Keeper to get here, and then my a Sisu. I'm on 2 cards.
Just play 4 Turn-a-Box followers. Easy.
I already have 4 in the deck. I guess you're right. Just get rid of them.
Yeah,
that's true. Maybe I'll follow. So I think that'll be what I play. And I also have Sapphire Steel built, but just with how much Amber Steel the Chicago meta I see, I'm lenient to do that just because Sapphire Steel does not have a good matchup into Amber Steel, I don't think. And so
I hear it's favored. People tell me it's favored, but every time I play that match, I'm like,
no.
What can I do when you shift Robin Hood, Holy World me after landing a Pride lands, and like I can play a Hiram next turn?
Yeah, so fun.
Play Hades.
Jeez,
that's a spicy take.
Play Hades.
But Sapphire Steel has such a rough time into locations. I feel like if I ever play Sapphire Steel, I am like forced to play Hook and Smeeze and like at least Rise of the Titans, and if not, I'm just kind of like conceding those. But then doing that is worse into Emerald Steel, and I hate that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping. Time of recording, it's Wednesday night, and we got an art reveal earlier today, and I was hoping that that Stitch would be revealed in the Discord by the end of this episode, but it's not, unfortunately. I was waiting. Well, the card yesterday was revealed at 7:17, so I'm like, okay, maybe we'll get it again, but it's a Stitch card, so I'm guessing we may get it at like 6:26 or something. Local time out east, west.
What are we gonna do when this is not a card?
What
are we gonna do?
Just promotional art.
Yeah, just promo art. Well, the thing I've seen is people are saying this Stitch is dual ink, which
I think people are getting ahead of themselves.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
If you look at the Remember Who You Are card, you could have just as easily said that was going to be an Amber Emerald card.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I think the steel logo is just on a purple flag, guys.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, even like when you look at like the colors and stuff, I remember the prints looking kind of like this too. Like the grays aren't the gray that they use for steel. Some of them have a little bit of that blue purple hue to the gray. So I think it's just that. Like I think that's just all that it is the colors pair well together.
Well, hopefully we see what that card is. We did get a new card yesterday. I guess we can talk about that now I think about it. We haven't talked about these just in the podcast. Remember Who You Are is a 4-costed uninkable in Emerald, and it says if chosen opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw cards until you have the same number. Thoughts? It's an Emerald. Yay.
I'm mad that this is an Emerald.
Yeah.
Like, Lorcana keeps doing this weird thing where they print the answers to an ink in its own ink color. Like the answer to steel ping stuff is steel resist cards. And it's like, the answer to Emerald discard in Diablo is in Emerald, so
I'm what deck are you playing this in?
I was thinking Emerald Amber.
Emerald Ruby? We don't have any cards there.
Maybe, there's no draw.
Nope, it's Emerald Steel. You tech it for the mirror.
Yeah.
I feel, but you're discarding their hand too. You're drawing like one card of this. I think this card's pretty bad right now. I think it's pretty abysmal.
Yeah.
I think it has room to be okay, actually. There's a lot of talk recently about just how broken some cards are in Lorcana. Like, people are complaining about Bucky, of course, but also people are complaining about Diablo and how strong that card is paired with the Bucky and just being able to draw cards more than normal. Same thing for Hiram. Hiram's broken with as much willpower as he has, the amount of draw abilities that he has. And, of course, you have Amethyst. It's always been great at drawing cards. And so I think Remember Who You Are is really expensive, and it being an uninkable card hurts, especially since, I don't know, I say I wish it would be a song, but it not being a song dodges all the Emerald stuff.
Yeah.
But I can see a world where this is actually a pretty good card, because there's quite a few games where like a Ruby Sapphire deck has popped off and they have a Hiram engine going, and they have 7 or 8 cards in their hand and you just haven't had enough steam. And I think the biggest issue with this card is, like Franz said, like, where are you playing this? Because a lot of Emerald decks don't have a ton of ink usually that they're playing with anyway, and so to have to spend 4 ink on this card when you're theoretically already behind because you don't have as many cards in your hand just feels like a lot to pay for.
It's finally time. Emerald ramp with your wand. Put all your wand and quill to put all your cards in hand in, and then you draw like 7 cards when your opponent has 7 cards. Easy.
We are not playing Hiram because our opponent's playing Hiram for us.
We've cracked it, boys. The issue with the wand, the issue with Fishbone Quill, you go too low. So if you draw 5 cards after it, easy.
Set 5 meta is cracked already. Easy, done.
Yep.
All right. Well, Franz, Brandon, I want to say thank you for hopping on with us again today. Brandon, a multi-episode member of the Glimmering podcast, has his own shirt, honorary member than Franz, also been on before. Franz, where can people find you on the socials?
You can find me on YouTube at Traverse Tavern, Twitter at, I think it's at Traverse. It's either at Traverse Tavern or at Traverse Taverns. I don't remember if I was able to get that handle yet. And then I'm on the Discord, on many Discords at just Traverse Tavern. If you type in at Traverse, you'll probably find me.
And then Brandon, where can people find you?
Everyone can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Discord at BSquared24. I spend a lot of time on Real Play Network. If you're looking for a way to play Lorcana online, specifically over webcam games, it's a great place. You've got almost 2,000 members. I'll be surprised if we don't hit 2,000 by the end of the week. We've got a matchmaking system, so it's easy to find games and a ranked leaderboard if you're interested in testing your skills against other really great players. So come hang out there.
Awesome. Well, if you don't want to follow any of us, all of our links will be down below, and we will see you guys in the next one. Glimmer on.